Willow Creek Springs presents Healthy Living with your host, Joe Grumbine.
Well, hello and welcome to the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine, and today we have a special guest. Her name is Carolyn Haeler, and she's the founder and CEO of Mightylicious Gluten-Free. And she's got a great story to tell us about dealing with celiac and how she went to create this wonderful company. So, Carolyn, without further ado, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So, it seems that celiac has become a much more common ailment these days. When I was a kid, we all ate everything we wanted to, and once in a while somebody had a peanut allergy or something. But now today, it seems that our guts are a mess, and it's likely to do with the combining of the world's food sources and ultra processing things and whatnot. But why don't you tell us a little bit about your story about how you came to this place that you're at?
Yeah, I mean, celiac disease is interesting. There's a lot of different people who fall into sort of the gluten-free category. Of course, celiac disease is one of them, but gluten intolerance is also far more common, which is a little bit different. It's more of like an allergy with symptoms.
Mhm.
I did not you can develop celiac disease is an autoimmune disease, and it's something that you can develop. It's something you can be born with. You can be diagnosed very young, but it's also something that you can develop. And I lived a gluten-full life for the first 31 years of my life. I ate everything. I didn't worry about what I ate. I just ate what I wanted and what I enjoyed. And I loved food, and I loved cooking, and I loved baking. It was a hobby of mine at that point. Um, and I had the opportunity to live in different countries. So I lived in Italy. I've traveled a lot in Paris. I've eaten all of the pasta and the croissants, and I've had all the German beer, and I love food. And I graduated from business school in 2010 and moved to New York City. And I started having some symptoms I never really dealt with before. It's just some very minor indigestion, which is not a big deal, but it was something that I was annoying enough that I talked to my GP about it. And over about 9 months of testing and the symptoms progressed to the point where my immune system was failing. My skin had turned gray, my hair was falling out, my stomach
Hey,
was distended. I'd had body aches and joint pain. And my doctor looked at me. I was so ill that my doctor looked at me and said, maybe you have HIV. And I was like,
whoa,
why did you test for that 9 months ago? And that is a pretty startling thing to hear.
yeah,
And this was back in 2011, 2012, and HIV was still it's progressed. The treatments have progressed quite a lot, but back then it was still rather scary.
sure.
Fortunately for me, I did have to live with that anxiety for very long because I had a colonoscopy and endoscopy scheduled to see what was going on with my gut, and they found the antibodies in my colon for celiac disease. We had
So
tests for
there are
it.
markers to determine that
Yeah.
it's it's not like a lot of things where they have to spend their time and kind of narrow things down.
Yeah, and I had done the blood test. We tested for blood for gluten and dairy and eggs and all of those things. And I'd even done some elimination diets, as we were trying to figure out what was going on with me. But they clearly found the antibodies. I was handed a piece of paper that said, "Don't eat gluten." And they're like, "Congratulations.
Oh,
Live
gee.
your life." Part of me was very relieved because celiac disease felt far more manageable than
A lot
HIV.
better than HIV, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I was relatively relieved, and it was just a couple days before Thanksgiving, and I was like, you know what? I've already done the elimination diets. I am only going to eat things that you were pulled off a tree, off a stem, or cut, like where I could physically see where it was cut off the animal, right? Like only whole foods that I know have nothing. And within 24 hours, my cheeks turned pink again. It was that
Oh,
immediate that my
oh,
body started to recover. Obviously, I'd done a lot of damage because celiac disease is permanent. You're destroying your colon, which is why I was turning gray. Your colon is where you absorb nutrition. And so my grayness was from the damage that I had done to my colon.
yeah.
But within 24 hours of basically just eating apples, broccoli and chicken. Healed again because I'd eliminated basically all the toxins that I'd been consuming. And so it started a journey for me because when you think about gluten, you think about bread and pasta, donuts,
Right.
cake, things like that.
Yeah.
But gluten is actually in most things, and I didn't know this at the time. It's used as a color, a preservative, and a filler. So it's in things like apple cider vinegar. It's in Pepsi and Coca-Cola. It's in ginger ale.
Wow.
All of those things have caramel color, and the caramel color comes from gluten. So anything that has caramel color in the ingredients has gluten in it. And that's a
Wow.
lot of things. Even things that would naturally be gluten-free, like apple cider vinegar, they may add caramel color to it because the color can fade or change during the distribution process.
Right.
Um, things like soy sauce are fermented with gluten. I've been um, I've been gluten before by cinnamon, even though the ingredients said cinnamon, because it can be used as a filler, or there can just be, they don't necessarily change the line during the manufacturing process. There could just be
Right.
cross-contamination from whatever was on that milling line for the cycle before. And so I've had cinnamon and I've gotten contaminated before. And then it's in things like as a preservative, it's in imitation crab. So that's sushi and California rolls. It's
Oh,
can be in turkey and ham because it's used as a preservative in things like cold cuts.
wow.
So literally everything in the grocery store has gluten in it. Even things that should be or could be naturally gluten-free will have it in there as some sort of color preservative. And
Wow.
so that changed my life profoundly. When you are no longer basically able to shop at a grocery store or go out to eat, your dietary restriction is unbelievably restricted. Um, and I was working at the time, my background is in finance. I was working on Wall Street. I was getting up, I was a stockbroker. So I was getting up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go to the gym, getting into the office before the markets open, not leaving because I was, building my business and not leaving until after the sun had set. And I wasn't able to like make a sandwich or grab a bagel, which is really becomes like very inconvenient in your life. Most of the
Right.
foods that we consume have been developed for convenience and for busy people and for transportability. And then when you remove all those products, you're like, well, I'm making a salad from scratch every day and bringing it with me every day because I don't know what can be cross-contaminated. I don't know what's in the salad dressing. Everything has to be from my kitchen. And that became a burden. It became a challenge. And even to today, even though I've been living with this for decades now, um, like I have to worry about when I travel all over the country for my business. I always book an Airbnb so that as opposed to a hotel. So a hotel is not going to have gluten-free options for me. If they do,
Right.
it's gonna be the one thing I can on the menu I can eat that I'll have to eat every single day. So I always book an Airbnb because I know it'll have a kitchen. I know that I'll be able to feed myself. I always have to think about, is there a convenience store? Is there a grocery store? Will I be able to go and get food that's healthy for me as I travel? And those are things I always was able to take for granted, right? Like it didn't
Right.
matter.
Right. It's not convenient to carry a big ice chest with you on the airplane.
No, no. And even like when I'm traveling to get on the plane, there's certain foods I can't even take through with me. And then I
Right.
get there, like, show me where your yogurt is.
Yeah.
Um, So all of these things add up, and it's a daily, like when you are diagnosed with something that is so restrictive as celiac disease is, eating becomes a battle, and it's a daily hour to hour battle. It's not a something you get to take for granted anymore. And I was living with this disease, building my career, and one day I was having a really bad day, I was having a really bad week, I had a really bad month. Didn't like my job. And I was shopping and I had a really bad cookie. It was gluten-free. I'd been shopping all day. I was tired. I was happy. It was cold out. I was online and it was Christmas time. So the line was like 100 people long. And I grabbed this package of gluten-free cookies and I was so excited because I was like, oh, I really need a cookie right now. And it was so disappointing that I like didn't even swallow it. I took a bite and didn't even like continue eating the cookie. And I was like, now I have to buy these cookies. They're $10. I'm going to throw them away before I even leave the store. And that was the moment that I was like, I'm just gonna make a better gluten-free cookie. I have a background in business and I love to bake. And so I did. It wasn't so easy. It was quite the process, the research and development phase of actually creating a cookie that I was proud of and would feel confident selling. Took months of development, but I left my job. I spent, 12 hours a day baking in my studio apartment, developing cookies. And the
You
first,
just one day got this idea and you said, I want to sell cookies
yeah,
instead of being a stockbroker.
yeah, stopped being a stockbroker and I became an entrepreneur. I'd gone to business school. I'd always wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was
Okay,
always something that fascinated me, that I was interested in, but I never had an idea. And you can't just become an entrepreneur. There has to be an idea. There has to be a problem you have or something
sure.
that you want to solve that you keep bring a unique perspective to. And it's something that you can't stop thinking about. And I didn't have that. And I knew that. And then I suddenly had this idea. I was like, I've been eating these foods for almost a decade now. They're horrendous. Gluten-free products can be barely edible. They're very expensive. There has to be a better way to do this, and I'm going to be the one to do it.
And was it the taste or the texture or the
All. It's
consistency?
the
All of
taste,
it.
texture, and the appearance. It's
Okay.
everything.
0 out of 3.
0 out of 3. So gluten-free products, and I know a lot more about why this happens now. There's a lot of chemistry and there's a lot of technical baking is science
Sure.
and it's chemistry. And so there's a lot of technical reasons why gluten-free products come out the way they are. They're often very gritty. And that's because the base of gluten-free flour is rice. And we don't, amazingly, we manufacture a lot of rice flour, a lot of rice, and we grow rice in the United States in 3 different states. We manufacture a lot of rice flour here because we have the rice. But we mill it for cooking, not for baking.
Oh,
So it's not milled fine enough. And so it can't absorb the moisture. Like when you're making a dough, you're taking a wet ingredient, combining it with a dry ingredient, it homogenizes, becomes a dough and transforms into a new thing. Well, if your flour isn't milled fine enough, it can never homogenize. So it
right,
can't
right, right.
actually
Yeah, people don't
create.
understand surface area and how water takes time to absorb it. It has to touch
Yeah.
everything, otherwise it doesn't make
Yeah. And rice also doesn't absorb butter the same way that we like different grains don't necessarily absorb moisture and different ingredients the same way.
sure.
Um, so what ends up happening is gluten-free products are very gritty. Like you can feel the rice flour sort of feels like sand in your mouth. Very fine sand, but still sandy, which is not no one's like, oh, I'd like some sand in my food.
Well,
And
and
then
gluten is that gooey, stretchy stuff that just makes everything so lovely.
yeah, gluten is protein, which is stretchy. It's provides body, but also so the gluten in wheat provides body and strength, so elasticity, so that when the baked good bakes and the liquid evaporated creates pockets, air pockets, which is where you get the crumb from.
Mhm.
Why croissants are so flaky. It's why cake is so bouncy.
Right.
Um, when you remove that, oftentimes gluten-free products don't rise the same way. And they absolutely, if you're making a cake, you have to make it half the size of a normal wheat product because you cannot get the rise out of it. Um, Gluten also is flavor, so it caramelizes and it turns brown, which is why you get lovely color and caramelization in wheat-based products. And it's also flavor, so it also tastes good. And it's very neutral. So wheat flour is unbelievably neutral. It can go with sweet things, it can go with savory things, but it has sort of a caramel flavor to it, which
Sure.
just goes with everything. It just
Right,
complements
right. It's
everything
like
really
vanilla.
well.
Yeah, it just
Yeah,
mixes it.
without overpowering anything either. It's very
Right.
mild. There are no other flours like that. So rice is very neutral, but it doesn't have rice has 1/400th the protein of wheat, which is why it doesn't bake very well.
Got it.
There's ancient grains like sorghum flour, millet flour, amaranth flour, which are often used in gluten-free blends, and they have much higher levels of protein. Sorghum flour in particular has nearly the same amount of protein as wheat flour. The problem is they don't taste good. In fact, by saying they don't taste good, I am being generous. They do not taste good. Um, they get, when you bake them past 150 degrees in particular, they get an acrid, bitter aftertaste. So sort
Right.
of like the smell of cigarettes. Like imagine the smell of cigarettes as a
Walking into a
flavor
pool hall and eating
in
that.
your mouth. That
Yeah.
is what it tastes like. And sorghum is added to almost everything and in smaller quantities. So it's not like it's just sorghum flour. It's mostly rice flours and tapioca starch, probably, and then sorghum flour. However, when you swallow it, even if there's a small amount, you still taste it. It's still, and it sort of sticks to the back of your throat. And that's why a lot of people have this negative reaction to gluten-free, is because when you bite into something, you get a little bit of grittiness. You can get past the grittiness, though you'd not prefer it not be there. You taste the butter and the sugar, but then you swallow it and you're like, ugh, what?
That's why I hate this.
Yeah. And then you don't forget that. It's something that you remember.
Yeah.
And most people are like, you know what? It's bad enough that most people are like, I just won't eat. It's a cookie, but I'll just wait till later when I get a normal
Apples
cookie.
for me.
Yeah. And so I figured that out. Like I knew sorghum when I started my cookie company, I knew the sorghum flour tasted terrible. That was something I knew, that I'd been reading labels. I had been baking my own things. I knew that sorghum was not going to taste good. I wanted my product to taste good. I wanted my product to taste exactly like a wheat product. I wanted to look like a wheat product. I wanted to taste like a wheat product. I didn't want it to be gritty or grainy. I didn't want it to have an aftertaste, and I didn't want it to be pale. Another thing with rice flour or something that's rice flour based is it's very pale, so it sort of looks anemic, and you don't get that brown caramelization you get from wheat flour. And so I created my own flour blend, and that was the hardest part, because a cookie is a cookie. Obviously, there's many different cookies, but everyone, like, a cookie is flour, butter, eggs, some sugar and vanilla, a little bit of baking soda. You can play with those ingredients a little bit and create different textures and things like that. But we know how to make a cookie. That science has been discovered. What we aren't good at is replacing wheat flour with anything, because wheat is the technology that makes baking happen. So I created my own flour blend, and I realized that I couldn't get rice flour that was milled fine enough. So I actually I found a rice co-op
Oh, wow.
that had its own mill, and they mill our flour for us to a
Nice.
spec so that it's soft and pillowy and it's not gritty. And then instead of replacing the protein with an ancient grain, and I have nothing against ancient grains because they are good for you, but you should be eating sorghum and quinoa and millet with like chicken piccata. You shouldn't be having it in your cookies. It's lovely in a savory application, especially if there's other strong spices like onions and bay leaf and other things that can compete with it and balance it out. But vanilla will never balance out sorghum flour.
What about things like coconut and almond and cassava flour?
Hi, this is Joe Grumbine, and I wanted to share an update. The platform that hosts this podcast has made some changes to the subscriber settings, and we have a number of subscriber-only episodes that we offer to the supporters, and for a minimum of $3 a month, we can get you signed up. And if you're already signed up and you're having some kind of trouble locating these episodes in the other platforms, I would say maybe the best answer is to unsubscribe and then resubscribe. I'm sorry for the hassle. I don't have any way to make a change, but I'm very grateful for all the support. Thank you.
Coconut flour often leaves a coconutty flavor. I have baked with coconut flour. Coconut absorbs so much moisture that it just changes the baking.
Okay.
But it's not bad. I certainly would recommend using coconut flour. It's higher in protein. You do sort of get a coconut essence to whatever you're baking now,
If you like
which is
that,
not a
good.
bad thing. I like coconut, but it's not always what I want. Almond flour, I like. I've baked with almond flour. It's also, it's a nut. So commercially, and I wasn't going for like a high protein cookie.
Got it.
And almond flour just doesn't have the buoyancy that you need.
That's heavy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's heavy. I love almond flour. I certainly have baked with it, and it's something that I use personally, but it's not, and it's also extremely expensive. So what you have to also consider is that wheat flour costs 5 cents per pound. Rice flour costs $2 per pound. I don't even know what almond flour costs.
Probably more. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the reasons why gluten-free products are so much more expensive is because 5 cents to $2 is exponentially more expensive. It's tremendous. So like in most products, your cheapest ingredient is the flour. In gluten-free baking, when you're baking gluten-free, the flour, which is the bulk of your recipe, is one of the most expensive ingredients. The only
Okay.
two ingredients more expensive are vanilla and chocolate chips if you're
Wow.
making a chocolate chip cookie. So expense really matters because I make a cookie that costs like my costs are like $2.67. By the time that gets to the consumer, it's a $9 to $10 cookie.
Sure.
So ingredients have to be within a certain price point in order to make it viable for retail.
Got it.
So I created this flour blend. I added whole milk powder to replace the protein, and it tastes wonderful. It performs just like wheat flour in most applications. It has no aftertaste and it's not gritty. So I spend months developing this and figuring it out. I mean, there's 6 different ingredients in it. So there's lots of different permutations of like getting the right balance of like starch versus protein versus rice. Figure that out and created a cookie that was frankly the best cookie that I'd ever created. It's my brown butter chocolate chip. Walked into a Whole Foods on the Upper East Side and said, I'm looking for feedback. I make gluten-free cookies. And the woman in the information booth was like, oh, go talk to Chris. He's the team leader in the bakery section. He's behind the cakes. And I was like, okay. I walk over there and I was like, Chris. And he was like, yeah. He comes around and I was like, I make gluten-free cookies. I have some samples. Looking for feedback. He tasted it and he goes, this is the best cookie that I've ever tasted. I want you to go down to Union Square. He's like, I'm the team leader. He gave me his card. He's like, I want you to go down to Union Square and to the Brooklyn Whole Foods. We sell more gluten-free products than any other Whole Foods in Manhattan. Ask for the team leader there. And if we all email the regional office at the same time, we have this like local forager program where they can onboard you to Whole Foods. And so I did.
Oh, what a good first step, huh?
Yeah, this was a Thursday and I was being onboarded by Monday.
Wow.
So, and it was very small. Like it wasn't like, I went home. I didn't have any like insurance. I didn't have any food handlers.
Right. What are you
Like
making
there's
these?
licenses you have to get. You have to get insurance. You have to be certified. Like there's all these things. You can't just sell food to the public. It's a regulated industry. So I got all those ducks in order. Found a little kitchen that I could rent by the hour in Queens, like a commercial facility that was regulated and had all the licenses, and started with 3 Whole Foods in Manhattan, quickly grew to 10 Whole Foods in Manhattan, and then to the Northeast and North Atlantic region. And that was what launched my business. And now we are in most states. We're all over the nation. We're in Giants, we're in Walmart, we're in HEB out in Texas, we're in small independents. We just
Were you
launched.
able to scale up pretty easily? I mean, you said you had a little rice co-op making your flour. Are they able to keep up with your needs?
Yeah, I mean, scaling is COVID was the biggest challenge to scaling. Scaling is I was able to source all of my ingredients. I'm particularly good at finding and sourcing ingredients.
Okay.
Managing supply chain is always a hurdle. There's always something. Like a couple years ago, there was a big drought down in South America and all of the vanilla orchids died, so there's no vanilla. Like there's always like things. There's like supply chain is like the hardest part. There's cocoa shortages and now we're dealing with tariffs
That
and
cocoa butter right now is like
yeah,
10 times what it was 5 years
I
ago.
know. I know. It's the chocolate, every single quarter, the price of chocolate goes up. It's extremely so it's a challenge, but I've never had a problem with keeping up. The hard part in scaling a business is the cash flow.
Yeah.
When you're growing rapidly and you're growing exponentially, is going from when I started my business, I would just had a credit card and I was just buying my ingredients with my credit card, baking on the weekends, delivering to Whole Foods, getting paid 30 days later, paying off my credit card, and just had this sort of revolving line of credit. And that was all I needed. But then going to 2 full regions, that's an entirely different sort of.
Adding zeros to that, it gets
and my credit card company was like, yeah, you're past your limit. You can't. You've been buying $5,000 worth of ingredients, and now suddenly you want 100K. So was more the challenge. The challenge was financing it, and then B, when you're sort of in that middle ground where you're sort of like going from doing it yourself and being able to like bake everything by hand, and then going to where you certainly cannot do that. You need a professional facility to be keeping up. They're sort of food manufacturers want you to be selling truckloads of product, and they want a guaranteed contract. If they're going to give you time in their facility, they want to know how, like, they want a full day shift minimum. And they want you to guarantee demand, and they want to know what days they're baking on for the entire year. And when you're growing and you're small, you're like, I don't need a full truckload of cookies. And I have multiple flavors, and that means changing the line over. And so it's hard to find sort of that mid-tier manufacturer that is willing to take you on and grow with you. So that was a big hurdle that I had to overcome, was finding the right partner, because while there are sort of middle tier manufacturers, I'm gluten-free. There's very few certified gluten-free facilities, period, in the US. And
Right.
then they have to be able to execute it, and gluten-free is tricky. It's very tricky. Lots things that go wrong with wheat flour can be adjusted by like adding a little more water, just adding a little more milk, you know, and that is not, if something goes wrong with gluten-free, it's you're throwing out the dough. And so throwing out 600 pounds of dough is a serious expense.
Right.
So it is tricky. So finding the right, at that phase, my biggest hurdle was finding the right partner to help to manufacture.
How many different cookies do you have?
We now have 7 flavors. We have all of our cookies are gluten-free, and then we have four flavors that are gluten-free and vegan and non-GMO certified. Our best-selling flavor is oatmeal coconut, which is gluten-free and vegan and non-GMO. It's a recipe from my wife's side of the family that's over 100 years old that I adapted to be gluten-free and vegan, and it's fantastic. It
Nice.
is sweet, it is salty, it's a little bit exotic from the coconut, it is comforting from the oatmeal, and it's soft, but also a little bit crunchy. It's wonderful. And most people like don't believe me when I tell them my oatmeal coconut cookie is #1, because this is America and we
Yeah, where's
love
the
chocolate
chocolate,
chips.
right?
Yeah. And so I have 2 chocolate chip flavors, and they're #2 and #3
Okay.
in my top 3. So this is just such a wonderful cookie. And I like coconut, and I also like oatmeal, but I would have never been like, you know what, I'm going to make an oatmeal coconut cookie. But this cookie is just wonderful. And it's our best selling. And when most people taste it, they're like, oh yeah, that's my favorite. And then we have brown butter chocolate chip, which is #2. That was the first cookie ever created. It's wonderful. We have a vegan chocolate chip, and that's #3. And then we have 4 additional flavors. We have shortbread, we have peanut butter, which is grain-free and dairy-free. We have an oatmeal raisin, which does really, really, I think it's my top seller online is my oatmeal raisin cookie. It's a huge fan base. It doesn't do as well in the retail stores, but online people really love the oatmeal raisin. And then we have double Dutch
Nice.
chocolate.
So if you got quite a story of invention and the whole process of all of this and even where it came from. If you had one thought to leave our listeners with today, what do you think that would be?
Oh, I have lots of thoughts on what. I have lots of thoughts on starting a business,
Well,
on
just,
basically.
you've shared a robust story. If there was one thing that you wanted to our listeners to take away from this, what do you think it would be today?
I think that it would be if you see a problem and you think you can like, and it's a problem that's impacting not just you, but a lot of people, be the solution. Find if you know there's a problem and you know that there must be a better answer, go find that solution. Starting my own business has been the most rewarding thing I could have ever done in my life. It has changed my life. I never wake up and don't want to go to work. I never, no matter how bad the day is, and I've had some really bad days, um, where basically everything's gone wrong, and I've lost a lot of money, and I still love those days. It just brings so much joy to my life. And in a way that I never imagined possible.
Plus, you get all the cookies you can eat.
Yes, exactly. Just so because my I've been testing my flour recipe, so I was making some cakes, and my 4-year-old goes, "Mommy, hundreds and hundreds of cakes. Why do we need all of these cakes?"
I love it. I
Fair, fair.
love it. So The question of the day is, how do people find you and your cookies?
You can find us in a lot of places. We're in Walmarts on the East Coast. We're in Giants in the Mid-Atlantic. We are in H-E-B out in Texas. We're at hundreds of other stores and smaller chains that I don't know all the names of across the U.S. If you can't find us at your local grocery store, you can find us at Mightylicious.com. We ship to all 50 states. If you buy 3 bags or more, shipping is free. So that's by 3 bags. Or more, you get the shipping for free, and we're also on Amazon. So obviously, Amazon Prime.
I love it. I love it. Well, Carolyn, this has been a great conversation. I'm a big fan of cookies myself, so I was interested ahead of time to hear about your story. So just want to thank you for joining us today. And, what a great experience.
Thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Excellent. Well, this has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Grumbine. I want to thank all of our listeners that make this show possible, and we will see you next time.
This has been another episode of the Healthy Living Podcast. We produce this show so that people can share their stories, people that have overcome obstacles, people that are undergoing obstacles. We're building a community of health-minded individuals. If you're interested in supporting the show, please leave a review on the platform you're listening to it on. If you're interested in becoming a guest, please send an email to itsjoegrumbine@gmail.com, or you can send a note into the notes section of the podcast. All right. Well, thank you for supporting this show, and we hope you've enjoyed it.